Hey folks, since I had the camera set up in the studio here, I just did a video about my music. I thought I would just show you a little treasure very quickly that I think I've neglected to show you so far. Now with violins, which is, the violin world which I started with, of course the provenance goes back to the 15th century, early 16th century. So you often find instruments that are made in the 1800s, 1850s, 19th century, 20th century. With guitars it's different because it's a much more younger instrument. So something like 50s, 40s, 30s is quite old. We consider it very vintage, which is not quite the case in the bowed strings world. But the oldest guitar that I own is this. This is a beautiful parlor guitar, really nicely made parlor guitar, and it's got a spruce top and a walnut back and sides. I wonder if you can see just the beautiful figure on this. And this is a 1901 guitar. That's the model number, and these were made sometime in the late 19th century. I think this one is dated at 1899. So the 1901 is actually a confusing thing about it because people think that's the date of the guitar. That's just actually the model number. And these were made by a couple of different companies, which later became Washburn. Washburn made these into the early 20th century. But before then, I'm trying to find the label on here, it was made by... I'm going to have to pause. Okay, I checked my notes on this because the label is hard to read. It's actually an 1897 dated model, and these were... this one here was made by Washburn. I thought it was a precursor to Washburn, but it's actually an early, very, very early Washburn Parlour. And of course, they still make parlor guitars. I think the R314 RK sells for about $500 or $600. It's the cheapest. So they still do quite a business in parlor guitars, these vintage parlors. But these are the precursors. And this was, when it came out, it was called the New Model. 1897 New Model. And this is the 111 size. Of course, all the sizing has changed since then. So it was the 1897 111 New Model guitar. That's how it was advertised back then. And of course, you could buy these in places like Sears and Roebuck's and Montgomery Ward. All the old catalogs from that period. Because there weren't that many guitar shops at the time. But anyway, this is a little treasure, and it's actually a classical parlor, which is a little bit rare. So it's a nylon stringed guitar, and I think somebody tried to string it with steel strings and warped the neck ever so slightly, which caused a little bit of damage. So this action's a bit high. There's no truss rod on it. And I've got the saddle down about as low as it can go, so it's slightly high in the action. It probably needs a neck reset. It does have a V-neck, which is strange for a classical guitar. It has the very squared off looking headstock, which is typical of that particular period. The slotted headstock, or peg head as they called it. The back has sort of the herringbone trim. It is bound, and it has traditional purfled rosette. But this is a little bit of a treasure because guitars just don't go that far back. I've got cellos that are older than this that are considered young, but for a guitar, this is going back quite a way. And it's probably, I haven't actually looked inside in a long time, but it's probably got the very much acoustic guitar cross bracing in it. I don't think it has fan bracing a la Torres of the classical guitar tradition. So it's built a bit like a acoustic guitar, but it is a nylon stringed guitar, and it is slightly narrow profile, so it's not a traditional classical guitar. You can see there on the end it has the little piece joining the edges there. That was quite common from that period. And this is a harder woods. It's ebony, so that the strap button that sits in there is anchored a little better because the wood is harder. In that particular, there's an end block there as well. It's got sort of a V-shaped neck, as well as the heel, as well as the neck. Sort of brass-looking frets, big mother of pearl inlays, a la acoustic guitars. Again, there's a lot of acoustic guitar appointments on this guitar. It doesn't have a volute, but it's really nicely carved the way that it goes from the V-neck into the peg head. And I think the tuners are original, and I'm very lucky that these are in good shape, because a lot of these types of tuners crack and have to be replaced. But these are original to the guitar, so I feel lucky to have this guitar in this condition. Slightly high action. I don't play it a lot because it's not the easiest guitar to play. It does have a sweet little tone. I do down tune it. I down tune it because the action, it just makes it easy to play, and I like down tuning guitars, as you know from my videos. It does have the bridge pin, as opposed to the traditional tie bar for a nylon string guitar. So you have to knot the ends of the nylon strings or buy the bald end nylon strings, which are becoming rather obsolete. I think maybe on ovations and things like that they're still used, but most of the time now for classical guitars it is a tie bar type bridge, but this does have bridge pins. So I just thought I'd show you this. I love parlor guitars. I'm glad they're coming back. And this is a little treasure made by Washburn right before the beginning of the 19th century. So this is older than both World Wars, the great stock crash and all that stuff. So I feel like I'm holding history, and that's a thrill for me, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about it. See you next time.